government can be the place that I really believe people can come together and they can fix big problems.
Hey, it's Stephanie. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Unwritten. Today, I have a really special guest here, Brett Topham. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
And the reason why I wanted you to come in today is we have a big election, and this podcast is actually going to go up Monday, the day before the election. And I have been following you because you're all over social media. And I like what you're doing. I like what you stand for. I like that you're getting the community involved. And I like that you work for or you volunteer for the food pantry. So to me, it seems like you are being the change you want to see in the world.
Oh, wow. Thank you.
Would you say that's true?
It's
Or
that's a big compliment. I could only hope.
yeah. And so what is you're doing this for a reason. And what is your reasoning? Are you a lifelong Baraboo resident or how long have you been in Baraboo?
I am what John Ringling would call a Barabooian.
Okay.
He said it out of dislike for people in Baraboo. But yes, I was born in the Ringling Hospital.
Okay.
And of course, through work and professional practice, my wife and I, we moved away a couple of times. And of course, when I couldn't get out of Baraboo fast enough after high school to go to college,
Mhm.
but then somehow kept meandering back. And about 6 years ago, I guess, retired and we came back.
Okay.
So, but for the most part, I've spent most of my life in Baraboo.
And you had a career as a financial advisor, is that
I
correct?
did a couple of things. I grew up in the hospitality business.
Oh, okay.
And then I got very fortunate and got a job with Hyatt Hotels, in which we just loved, but we moved a lot
Yeah, I
and
bet.
traveled a lot. But it was really a fascinating time in the hotel business and and the service business in general. But then we wanted to come back to Baraboo to start a family. And so just kind of naturally through a course of events and I guess really blessed to get into the financial services business, but kind of in a different way. I came through the bank trust office side, which is a unique kind of side to come through, but there was the local bank, which was the First National Bank, and they needed a trust officer. And I guess I looked like an okay candidate. And they said, well, we'll send you to school any place you want to go in the country, as long as you agree to stay with us and be our trust officer. And I thought, well, that's a neat opportunity. So I did that. And that's how, I guess that's now 35, 40 years ago.
So you kind of had an interesting path
Yeah,
in life.
I was just, I was really blessed. It was really a neat opportunity. And I've always been curious. And boy, being in capital markets, boy, that's a great career for somebody who's curious because there's so many different facets about it. And through the evolution of that, I became more of a portfolio manager
Okay.
than a financial planner or service, although I was a certified financial planner, but I spent the last, probably 10 years of my career as a senior portfolio manager for a locally Wisconsin firm.
So you're doing all this. You're raising do you have a family? Do you have kids? Or
Oh boy, I sure do. And they're above average, just so you know, according
of
to
course they are.
Garrison Keeler. Yeah, I've got a daughter and she lives in Minneapolis. Now don't get me started on my kids. This podcast's not long enough. She lives in Minneapolis and she's in theater
Okay.
and gig work, which I think is just fascinating.
Yeah.
So, and she's kind of she's elevated to the position now. She does most of her work with a theater up there called the Guthrie Theater, and she's somebody you'll never see. She's a stage manager, director, that kind of thing. And then I have a son who kind of bit off on the hospitality. Might add, he's the fourth generation of the family to go through UW Stout.
Congratulations.
And he's in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay. Is there what's down there?
He is well. What's down there is really nice weather when it's not nice
Yeah.
here. But he runs a chicken joint called Gus's World Famous Fried Chicken.
Okay.
But it's an amazing operation, and he really learned how to do that from our friends in the Dells because there's almost more PR than there is chicken. It's an iconic. You can go there on the Vegas Strip. They're in Hollywood. They're those kind of places, and they're in the Riverwalk in San Antonio.
That's awesome. Have you ever dabbled in politics before?
Did always local. I was on the council. I don't know the number of years, but I'd say it was between 10 and 15 years.
Okay.
I had actually on the Baraboo City Council, and so was in fact there was a while I guess I was president. I got the and
Oh,
I
okay.
used to chair the finance committee.
Okay.
And so, not unfamiliar territory.
And that's a big part of what you want your message to that's what your message is, right? For Baraboo is how can we better fund certain things, but also like be smarter with money. Is that correct? What would you say your message, your core message is?
I think I have a couple on a more direct basis. Yeah, you stated it very succinctly. I think if I look out and I see Baraboo the next 2, 3, 5 years, probably one, if not the greatest challenge we're going to face is fiscal, is financial.
Hmm.
And so that certainly draws you in. But I also think that government, and especially city government, or local government, I should say,
Hmm.
is really has a wonderful opportunity. Government can be the place that I really believe people can come together and they can fix big problems. And it can be a place where there's a variety of voices. And we get our best solutions when we get a variety of voices. Roosevelt used to say, if you and I always agree, one of us doesn't need to be here. And you knew who that was. And so I think we get our best solutions when we get different ideas that aren't all the same. That doesn't necessarily mean we give up our values. It means we just are willing to listen to the other guy. And I remember when I was on the council before, and I really had the chance to serve with some neat people, Tom Cole, Joel Petty. My last mayor I served for was Pat Liston. I'd go home, there's 9 people on the council. And I would go home some nights and it would be an 8 to 1. And I was the one. But a lot of times I drive home thinking, those folks are smarter than me. Just maybe, we came up with the right decision tonight.
Hmm.
And so government doesn't have to be contentious. It doesn't have to be divided. The idea that you have a different opinion than I have doesn't mean we have to be divided, as long as we're respectful of each other's opinion and say, what can we do to come up with the best solution? So I think that's a higher calling for government. And I think the present mayor's done a pretty good job of keeping things copacetic, but I think we could do more. Now we've got to be willing to take on the tough things, but government can do that.
And it seems like this year a lot of things came to a head with the pool and the cab system. I think there was another one too. So
Maybe the zoo, I'm not sure if
the
that,
zoo.
okay, I'm not sure but yeah, that would certainly fall in that same category almost, yeah.
Yeah, and then it seemed like it was kind of an opportunity for Baraboo to kind of come together,
Yeah,
and it did.
it did. And it also, we started about, I guess I've been going to the city meetings and the finance meeting. I'm a finance geek. Can't
Hmm.
help it.
Right. We all have our gifts.
There's medicine that I take, and my wife says then I won't be hurting anybody as a finance geek. But so I think when I look, it's a great opportunity to begin to think of maybe a little different course. And those three really identify it. Let's just pick the pool. First off, I think the city learned a lesson.
Yes.
I remember back when I was on the first time, we could talk about world peace and there would be no one that would come to the council meetings. But if we mentioned we might put a sidewalk in front of your house, it would be standing room only. People galvanize and resonate with local issues, and we've got to be respectful of that. So here's the pool, and I think the council was a bit shocked that they closed the pool. And I don't know how many people there were, but let's say 40 people that came and expressed a concern, but something good came out of that I'd been talking about before. I think we need to look at private public partnerships. That doesn't mean we're going to privatize the pool, not a chance. And it doesn't mean we want to. It means we need to look at other sources of support. And that was a great example. The Riptide kids, and they raised the money for the operating cost.
Hmm.
The city came up with the maintenance cost, and the city facilitated it along with the leadership of the Friends of the Parks. And there's an example where different people came to the table, and I think we came up with a greater solution. Now, I think we need to hang on to that because the pool is still in disrepair. It's an old pool.
It's very
I
old.
think it's like almost going to be 100 years old. Don't be careful on that, but I think that's about right. And many of us have great memories. I remember every summer day riding my Stingray bicycle to the pool, and that's where I spent my afternoons. I mean, so it goes deep. So we've got to come up with a different way to solve this. We should start now and One of the things city government needs, I think, would be helpful, and they do a lot right. I don't want to be just, brutal on city
You're
government.
not. You're not.
They do a lot right, but I'd like to see us start to think beyond one fiscal year. I spent the last 10 years of my life working for a wonderful entrepreneur and his family, Sam Johnson.
Okay. I don't know who that is.
Windex, Raid,
Okay.
Johnson Wax. I was on the financial side of the Johnson Financial. But Sam would say, I don't want to see a quarterly report. I'm interested in what this will do generationally for me.
Wow.
And I take that same, maybe not quite as a wow statement, but at the city, we've got to think beyond 1 year. So we know that the pool obviously is an area that I'm not the only one that says, hey, that's important. We also, I think the council maybe learned that, hey, that's more of the fabric of who we are than and it might be more important than money. Here's a finance guy. It's more important than money. Wow. So why don't we come up with a 6 or a 7-year plan and say, let's maintain it. Let's make sure that we can keep the lights on for 7 years, but let's start now with a philanthropic campaign to replace it. I have to think somebody will step forward, just like they did the library, if we do it right, and they say you're being responsible and your plan is well thought out. And maybe there's somebody that says, and I really want my name on a pool, or my family's name on a pool. Mm-hmm. But we need to start now. It's the hard thing. But if you look at the people that are involved in that, they really are the leaders of Baraboo. If you go through who really stepped up, and they're drawn in, let's bring them in all the way and say, let's step off and do this. Now, the city can facilitate that. We can lead that. I don't necessarily think that we can continue to be the big check writer like the days of old. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean we can't lead and that's what leadership is, and get the job done.
Yeah.
And set out, I don't know if it's 5 years or 7 years, but it's not 1 year. And in the thought of that, then what a great chance, bring in the Riptide. Maybe there's some other groups, maybe Rotary or Kiwanis says, hey, we'll latch onto that for the next couple of years and see if we can help maintain that. So I think it's a matter private, you bring in philanthropy. You also could bring in corporate sponsors and public, which is the city. Yeah. Private, public partnerships. Same thing happened on taxi, if you think about it. I guess we learned that the taxi's pretty important.
Yeah, didn't know it before.
Well, again, it's but you know what? I went through aging parents, and the taxi was my mom's lifeline. So now she would complain about the taxi most days,
yeah,
but it was her lifeline. And the truth is, it was really, really important. So this was so neat how the hospital steps up with their foundation and says, here's $50,000, and the city supports the rest, and they facilitate it. Now, keep in mind, it doesn't take $100,000 to run the taxi. It takes $600,000, but $500,000 is already there from state and federal support and grants. And if you take it away, you lose that piece of Baraboo. And we have to be, you got to remember we're stewards of that. The zoo is a classic example. You take away the zoo, close it. Yeah, we probably save about $220,000 a year. That's about the budget number. It's 1.5 full-time employees with a zoo director in there. And you close that. Now just try to get it to come back.
Oh, right.
But one of the things we lose sight of, and I think we've got to think bigger. A great example was when you're running for office, days all, I think it was this week. I think it was Wednesday.
Yeah, I thought you'd be busy.
The city tore down the stone wall on 8th Street in front of the park.
Okay.
And by 10:30 in the morning, it had blown up on social media. Well, yeah, we knew. I'm sure that the city knew they were going to.
Is it that little piece?
It's gone now. So you drive by, you'll see it.
Yeah.
Gone.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that the other day.
So, I think what it taught us is, first off, it's very difficult to over-communicate. Mm-hmm. I never knew a great leader that says, oh, I really over-communicated that message. No. So we have to look at other venues to communicate. Here, the Parks Commission, which is an awesome commission. We've had, I think, back at Greg Weiss, who led it for, I think, decades. And now you got Roy, who's leading it. And great people. That's basically a volunteer commission that's responsible for all of our parks.
Oh, wow.
That lead that. And those are volunteers.
I didn't know that.
So you've got them. They made a decision, which makes a lot of sense. It was, the wall apparently was falling down. It was a risk and a danger. But we tore it down, and people came, just like they came to the council chambers when we said we were going to close. They said they were going to close the pool. We probably could have handled that. Hindsight's always perfect. we probably could have handled that better. I mean, did we ever reach out and say, is there a corporate sponsor that would do this? Or at least communicate? Now, my wife looked at it and said, maybe it looks better. You can now see the animal things easier than you could before.
Yeah.
Just didn't communicate it. But the zoo is a great example of how the private sector has supported that. Friends of the Zoo. But we could do more. Imagine if the crazy ideas, you gotta take a blank sheet of paper if you're and then you got to be willing to say, no, that's really a stupid idea. How about if you could adopt an animal? I mean, really adopt an animal. You get adoption papers. You get a picture of the animal. You get a birthday card every, we probably have to make up that date, but every year the animals, and you create sponsorships that way. Or maybe you renew that adoption. How about corporate sponsors for every exhibit at the zoo? There's a few examples where you can begin to fund $200 and some thousand for something that if you take it away, you'll never have it again. I don't want to sound bleak, but it'd be pretty hard.
I mean, yes. Zoos are more of a thing. I can't think of the word, but they don't make them in cities anymore.
They don't, and the ones that have are struggling.
Right.
Interesting on the communication, somebody came up with the idea, he wants to sell the zoo. Yeah, you find somebody that will buy a no-fee zoo, a free zoo. No, I don't want to sell the zoo. And you can't anyways. It's just, that's where Baraboo started.
Yeah.
Somewhere there is where the first home in Baraboo was. So, but I think you can continue. We've already started down that road. I remember being in the Rotary Club and we did this duck drop at Zoo Days to raise money for the zoo. You just need to keep, and it takes the community to come together, which you already have.
Yeah.
The Friends of the Zoo is a very vibrant group, very engaged, very, very interested in their cause. You just need to support them.
Yeah. I know for me, so you met my dog.
I did.
We go to the dog park every day. And a couple weeks ago, it was really great. I don't know his name. You probably do. He must be in charge of the parks. He's a younger guy with...
I'm not sure who, but that's okay.
Anyways, he came down to address some of the problems with the dog park.
Okay.
It was fantastic because we were able to talk to him about some of the issues that we had and then our solutions. And then he went to the city with what they could do and what they could provide us. And, we weren't, you need to do this and this and this for us. It's like, what do you have? What can you give us? And how can we take up the rest of the slack so that we get the changes we want at the dog park? And I think that is a really healthy way to go about communication, right? But also to get things done within the city and how we can all work together.
I agree.
And so that's your biggest message.
I think it's one of the areas that I get the most excited about.
Yeah.
Because it's where government can do good.
Yeah.
It's where we can, yes, in the short term, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, we probably need to fix our fiscal situation.
Yep.
But think generationally. And that's where it really gets. And I think we do. I think there are people that do. And that's the exciting thing.
So I want to switch topics just a little bit because you're obviously an older generation than me. Maybe not obviously, but, and you are using social media like a 17-year-old. So tell me about where that inspiration came from, because that's how you're sitting here right now, is you're on LinkedIn, you're on Facebook. I don't know if you're on other stuff too, but I mean, you're getting people involved, and I appreciate you and what you're doing. So what's yours? Tell me about that.
I guess it came to the idea that, if we keep doing the same thing and expect a different result, that's probably silly. So I wanted to start a conversation. And most politicians, pick on the politician, I heard this from a politician, but the definition of politician?
What?
Poly, which is many, and tick, which is blood-sucking parasite. And I am a politician, I guess, this week at least.
I guess you are, yes.
You get a lot of lukewarm, this is what I want to do. I want to lower your taxes and increase your services. And you know what? I have a couple ideas. I'm interested in your ideas because that's how I learned. And I found social media is a place that maybe I can say what I think we should do. And if somebody looks at that and says, well, that's the stupidest thing, and there are people that have, and they've expressed that on social media to me, it's the stupidest idea I've ever seen. I get it. It might be, but that's my idea. And I begin to explore it and expand it. So I said, well, gee, I I want a place for people to land where I can put out a blog and I can express the things that I think that I'd like to see us talking about.
Yes.
There was an interesting story I heard once where this was back in the President Clinton era, and he was going through New Hampshire, of course, which is where everything kicks off. And every town he went to, there was this lady on the corner with a sign. I mean, every town he went to, just there she is. And so
It was the same lady.
the same lady,
Okay.
same sign. And he was a pretty dynamic, extroverted person, a people person. And he finally said, ma'am, what can I ask? And she goes, because when you're in my state, I'd like to see you talk about my issues. So I thought, I want to know what's on your mind. What are your issues? And the two-way communication is what I found interesting about those. Not only did I want to put out a blog that said, hey, here's what I'm thinking, here's some ideas I've got, but I wanted to know your ideas. And so LinkedIn was really the format, only because I'm somewhat technologically hampered.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that'll be the format I can actually post the thoughtful, if you will, ideas.
Yes.
And then I can use Facebook for the conversation, because that's more people I get some messages on LinkedIn, but more conversations happening on Facebook. That's what got me into it, is just to say, hey, these are some things that I think, these are some ideas I have. What do you think? And let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And that happened. I mean, I'm not sure what the statistics mean, but I have 35,000 views in the last 14 days. I'm not really sure what that means.
On a post, on a video?
Basically, that's when you go into Facebook and you look for your analytics.
Yeah, that's your
the
analytics.
first analytic. And I started with no friends. Well, I had my wife. I had one friend. I started the campaign with one friend, because this is a new page. This is brand new. I mean, I opened it,
Okay.
and then, I went through the things that I put my first picture up and realized, no, that doesn't really work on an iPhone. You kind of go through that. I'm doing social media like a 17-year-old.
Yes.
I should put out a paper on my greatest social media failures.
Well, I think that's a compliment, first off, because I've had friends in politics before, and they'll do the photo shoot with me, but then you never see them again, or they put it on a sign out in front of their house, but I don't get to, if it's not in front of me, I'm not looking at it. And so I'm that generation that spends a lot of time on her phone and on her laptop, and you've caught my eye.
Well, thank you.
And I think you've caught a lot of people's eye, obviously. It's like,
We had some great conversations.
Yeah.
On some issues, and some of those people have gotten back to me and think I'm dead wrong, and other people have gotten back and said, no, there's that resonates with me. That makes some sense. So it's been whatever happens Tuesday, it's been a fascinating exercise. And if for some reason Tuesday I win, I just can imagine how you could grow this. You do podcast.
Yeah.
Imagine a District 9 every 14 days podcast. Now just think what we could do. One is you ride along with a snowplow driver during the first snow. Now, when I was an alderperson before, I did ride along with. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
It is more skill than not to take out mailboxes and storm sewer covers.
Yeah.
These guys are actually pretty experienced at what they're doing. Ride along with a cop. Now, obviously, you'd have to edit it so private information. If we arrest John Dillinger, you probably can't publicize that. But ride along with go volunteer a day at the fire department.
Mm-hmm.
You can spend a day with the zookeeper and other issues that are pertinent to people.
Yeah.
So I thought, maybe a podcast would be, again, great leadership. I've never seen a great leader say, gee, I just way over communicated. And I think you come at people listen with different messages, and
they hear different things.
And social media gives you the opportunity to expand on that. So
how do you handle some of the haters, or do you get any bad stuff? Because I see some of the different Baraboo sites, and some people, not at all directed at you, but some people can be pretty brutal. And I'm only saying that even for myself, comments that I'll get on YouTube. It's like, why would you be so mean? Like, how do you do you get those? And
you do. I think the first thing you have to realize, if I look at great leaders, the common denominator is humility. You can't take yourself that important. And it doesn't take me long to read a message and realize this poor person is just probably a little bit out there. And I move on. And but if you don't, I think I try to put a lot of thought and care in what I say and the ideas I've got, and I realize they're not going to match up with everybody.
Right. Yes. Like we said at the beginning.
Now, one of the interesting things is you watch the dialogue with, this is a really important election, and it's not because I'm running for alderperson. There's some pretty important things on the ballot, and one is the school board. I mean, we did some work the last time I was on. I partnered with G. Rotkin, and we wrote this paper it's online, and it actually got picked up by the Secretary of Education for the United States. And they kind of found, this was before social media though. So following meant we got a couple of newspaper articles out of it.
Yeah.
But it basically said the traditional thinking was if you create a great economy, it can create a great school system. And we said, we think you got it wrong. We think a great school system creates a great economy. We think that people come here because of the school system, not necessarily because of the economy. It was a fun exercise. We had a lot of people that said, you're stupid, you're an idiot. But it was a very, very neat process. So I wish we had social media back then. I'm used to a cute story on disagreeing. Back before when I was on the council, it used to be on TV. Now it's YouTube, but not TV. And my wife, it was Tuesday nights, my wife would watch it. And depending on the degree of the discussion, I would come home and at the kitchen table, we'd have a decaf coffee or she'd have a bottle of wine opened up. And this was a wine night. And I remember saying, I've been on the council longer than those guys. I know more about finances than those guys. I'm older than any of those guys. I can't believe they can't get into my ideas. And she picked up her glass of wine and she goes, that's right, dear. You are older than most of those guys, and walked out of the room. So not everybody is going to agree with me.
Right.
And so you can learn from that. I also have to say, when I was on the council before, I got a lot more, hey, thanks for serving, than I got, people being rude.
Yeah.
By far. And even now, I appreciate the likes. If you push the like button, it makes you feel good. So it's okay, maybe my ideas aren't totally off base.
Yeah. And we'll kind of start wrapping things up, but can you talk a little bit about the Beyond Blessed Pantry? And because again, I'm at the dog park, and on Wednesday nights,
you see our cars.
I see the cars, and one of my friends down there, she looked at me and she's like, I can't believe how many people Beyond Blessed food pantry serves.
Well, you opened up the topic, so I get the right, just like on my kids, you're supposed to be humble, but on your kids, you don't have to be, right? Is that fair? The same with Beyond Blessed. First off, it's a wonderful nonprofit. I think great nonprofits, to some degree, great organizations, they need a lunatic at the head and at the helm. And in all good ways, we have a great lunatic that runs Beyond Blessed. She lives and breathes providing food to people that don't have food, and will walk through fire to find food for people that don't have food. Wow. And it takes 100 volunteers, I think that's right, to make that happen. It takes I think Bill's got just 15 people directing traffic.
Wow.
So shameless plug, Wednesday nights or any day, there's things you can volunteer just about every day. There's things to be done. So that's what makes it happen. And we will serve, Wednesday night. We this is Friday. We did, I remember the number because we did 699 families.
Wow.
I know, why couldn't we, about this, can't we find one more family? It's 699. And the math is such that that's about 3,000 people. And the team serves 3,000 people in 2 hours. Wow. Isn't that amazing? Mm-hmm. Now, the only thing that we ask is how many families are you picking up for? Because we have some people that it's their ministry and they will pick, and sometimes we get a little bit of interesting comments because you'll go by and you say, that's a Escalade, what are they doing in the food pantry line? Well, they might be picking up for 9 seniors that are shut in. And so, we probably have a good number that pick up for more than one family. And then the other thing we ask is, where are you from? Just so we can kind of, I guess that's our communication that we do. We we get 70% say Baraboo. Now, if you live out in Greenfield, you'll probably say Baraboo. Mm-hmm. And so it's not like we don't have your address or anything like that. And then we will do whatever we can to get you food. I would say out of it, and I don't know statistically, but I'd say probably 20%. I'm the traffic coordinator at the actual pantry. So
okay.
I see everybody. And I try to make their day a little better if I can. So you engage them. I mean, you want to talk to them, unless it's 60 below, when some nights it's been, then their windows are rolled up and they're like this, and so am I, even though I'm trying to direct them through. I'd say about 20% live in the cars that they're picking food up in. I've noticed an increase in the number that don't speak any English, and I think, wow, how, on one side, how scary, and on the other side, how courageous to be in a country you don't speak the language and you're trying to take care of your family. And a lot of people, you realize this is it. This is their lifeline. It's that thin, and this makes or breaks them. So if that gets you interested, and come on down and volunteer, it's truly been it's truly been a blessing. I can tell you the number of God stories that have come out of there. It's just like, wow, can't believe that, we were able to make that happen. But it goes back to Shannon, a huge shout out, my lunatic CEO, and she's our one-paid staff person.
Yeah.
And they really, I think of the thousands of people. You come to the warehouse on a Wednesday, about 3 o'clock, start service about 4. And it's piled high. I mean, it's to the rafters. And I go out and direct traffic then for 2.5 hours and meet the people and schmooze on, how you doing, and try to lift them up a little bit. And I guess you'd say that's my ministry. And then I come back in the warehouse, usually very exhausted, after having a few, as my daughter would say, vitamin I's, ibuprofens. Mm-hmm. And it's empty. Wow. And there's nothing but cardboard and trash on the floor. And for the last 2.5 hours, dozens of volunteers have taken just tons of food and put it in cars. Then Thursdays kind of clean up, and Friday and Monday it starts all over again. Pack cans. Tuesday produce shows up. Wednesday milk's all put out. Everything's ready to rock and roll. Wednesday night, here we go. It's amazing. You got to come down. If you're curious, you got to come down and try.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
There's my shameless plug.
It's every week?
Every week. The only time it fails is if schools are closed because of snow.
Okay.
Which is, Wednesday's a great day for that because it's half day for schools. Mm-hmm. So we rarely close. Yeah. And we try to, we say, you go to the circus world. So here we have a traffic problem. We never even asked. We're trying to figure this out because there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cars. And in fairness, the first night we did our new headquarters, I came up with this traffic plan that was a disaster. I had them going out the Lake Road, and it was like trying to get into a Packer game. It was not, and thank God for the city police and the sheriff's office. They saved us, and they got it all squared away. And they said, guys, this is like Lambeau Field. You need that kind of traffic direction. What are we going to do? Where can we stage these cars? We didn't go out to the community and ask for help. A lady at the Circus World Museum called us and said, hey, I was wondering if you could use our parking lot, our really big one, because we don't. And we have no trouble if you want to stage down there. And then we had no volunteers, and all of a sudden we had 15 people step up and say, hey, we'll help direct cars down there, and we'll help do a pace car to get the people over. And again, a big shout out to the police department, because they really helped school us on how to do that. And the city in general, it's not this Wednesday. This Wednesday was delightful, but last Wednesday was ice and snow. And the city deployed a salt truck so we could get the people up Hill Street. It's a community effort.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry, that was probably a yes or no question.
I don't think so, no. So with a podcast, the more you talk, the better it is.
Oh, good. Gee, they asked you the time and you told them how to make the watch.
So elections happening. And like I said, this is going to come out Monday. Obviously get out and vote, right?
Yeah.
This
is the local election.
Yeah.
This is really, I think, important, and get involved. Now, in talking to the city clerk, she said we have like 400 people that have already voted. So, and she said, this is way more people than we normally have. So that's exciting, isn't it? That people are getting out to vote.
Yeah.
So they do a terrific job on, getting the lines through. It's not this, they move the people through.
Yeah, it's not too bad. I know even at the presidential election, I had to re-register because I moved, and it wasn't that bad. And this is as important on a local level, but I don't think as many people will be.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah.
I know one year when I ran for council, I got all 35 votes.
Oh, there should be more than 35.
So I'm hoping, I'm hoping.
401 on
Well,
there.
that's 400 for the city. Not necessarily for District 9.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not so sure if you're supposed to feel good about that or not. But wow, I just cleaned the table.
Yeah. Any last words?
No, thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you so much.